and welcome to We're All Fine. This is Holly, and with me ever is my super spicy co-host, Carly. Hi, Carly.
Holly, hi, everybody.
I was listening to a previous episode where I was calling you the super sexy co-host, and you were like, yes, that will be it from here on in. And then I realized I stopped saying it.
Yeah, well, I didn't forget that I noticed, but it was okay. It was fine.
Well,
It's okay.
I don't want to just jump back in. I want to acknowledge it and then restart with something like spicy.
That'll feel more organic, so I'm okay with that. I like spicy. I enjoy that. Like a ginger snap spicy or a jalapeno, depending on if you're an asshole. You never know.
Well, this is the joy of ginger, which is why I'm so excited today to introduce our guest today, Lynn Harris.
Hi, Lynn.
Another fabulous, brilliant, amazing ginger who is joining us today. So Lynn has authored and co-authored 6 books, which touch on comedy and social justice. It brings me so much joy. She's also the founder and CEO of Gold Comedy, a comedy school, professional network, and content studio where women and non-binary folks grow their comedy careers and build powerful communities. Love that. And kind of what we're going to be talking a little bit about today, too. Lynn is the co-creator of Breakup Girl, which is really fun. We checked
My
that out as
new
well.
obsession. My new obsession.
Good.
Currently draining my phone's battery with Breakup Girl. So
That is our goal.
So, hi, Lynn. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, my hair. You talk about my hair. I'm looking at it. Like, I know this is a podcast, but so I'm glad you can't see that it's time to update my roots. Look at that. Totally. There's about as much real ginger in my hair as there is in a Starbucks gingerbread latte. You know what I'm saying?
No, Lynn, no, we do not talk about roots on this.
I mean, I'm not trying to, I've got nothing to hide. My hair, I'm not trying to pretend that that my color is natural, but I'm just noticing. It's just a scheduling thing, really. Just noticing.
Being a redhead is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
I was literally going to say that. Ginger is a lifestyle. It is not a physical trait.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a mindset. It's all those things. Absolutely.
Do you guys believe that it is true what they say about ginger girls just being more fiery in relationships?
100%. I will say 100%, especially I will say there's nothing wrong with anyone who has dyed red hair, but those of us that grew up, especially in the 90s, being a redhead was a curse. Like South Park really made my life difficult. Like Kick It Ginger Day and gingers stole people's souls. These were real things. So we got picked on a lot when we were kids. So then now that we're grown up, I'm not taking any shit from a snot-nosed dude. It's not going to happen. It's not.
Listen, you wouldn't, no matter what your hair color is.
That's fair. That's super fair.
But
fair.
Point taken.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think it's also it has to do, for me, if you look at sort of even older cultural references than South Park, just the sort of eternal ones, that the blonde is the pretty one and the redhead is the funny one is the thing. And so I'm not saying, there's lots we can say about the patriarchy and how that's stupid. But also when we think about who have we as people who appreciate comedy and funny women, who have we been drawn to? Well, it's Carol Burnett. It's Lucille Ball. It's no, and I don't know which is the chicken and which is the, I do know, I don't know which is the chicken and which is the egg, but I do know that stereotype has been given a lot of energy.
100%.
And so it's no wonder that we're drawn to that vibe, and no wonder we think it's a lifestyle. Right or wrong as a stereotype, that's what's been that is the message that we've gotten, that the redheads are the funny ones. So here we are.
It's true. That's why Powerpuff Girls growing up were my favorite, because it was the one time where the redhead was the leader.
That's such a good point.
I was like, oh, I'm obsessed. Yes, here she is. She was leader. She had all the traits. I was obsessed.
I feel like I've got to back up to the little generational point here between where you guys are bringing stuff up. And I'm looking at Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And all of a sudden that was where I saw a lot of the redhead trope
the femme
come
fatale.
from. Yeah.
Yeah. They're either funny or a femme fatale, both of which are dangerous.
I love that. I love that.
100% truth. So dangerous. Let's talk about Breakup Girl.
Also
How
a
did that
redhead.
start? Also a redhead. Yup. So how did that all start, Lynn?
Okay, sure. So I love talking about Breakup Girl. So Breakup Girl is background. Breakup Girl is the only superhero who helps people, all people, with romantic emergencies. You know, because we have superheroes who can bend steel bars, but how about one who can mend broken hearts? And my creative partner and I initially called her Breakup Girl because we kind of imagined her, and I'll give you some more of the background, but we imagined her as initially as really just rescuing you from the challenge, you know, all the pain slash anger, whatever it is, all the unfun stuff that comes with a breakup. But then as we built kind of the world around her, which again I can say more about, we never changed her name because she never stopped doing that part of the job. But what we realized was that and how her kind of world grew was around healthy relationships, you know, including with yourself, you know, so that because if you're having relationships, you're having breakups, you know, it's just it's part of the territory, right? Doesn't mean you failed at it. It just means that one, if there is such a thing as a forever one, wasn't the one, right? So it frees you up for the one who is, right? And also, you know, being okay with being on your own until you find someone you want to be with.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and being able to, you know, the better you can move on from a breakup in a comfortable way at a comfortable time, yeah, the better you can kind of integrate it into your life as part of, rather than seeing it as a failure to kind of block off. And so
Love that.
I'm making her sound super serious. She's a superhero with a comic book with comic adventures that my creative partner and I invented as part of a book we I'm words, he's pictures, but a book we were doing a long time ago that was a humorous guide to surviving a breakup. And we created her as kind of the narrator of the book to give it a through line, and we gave her a backstory, and we gave her sort of adventures and her own life that she's navigating while she's also helping other people and other characters. Like she has Paul the intern, and she has Breakup Girl Friday, and she has, you know, a world
Yes,
of
love
her
it.
own. Yeah, and she is really good at her job, but she also has a life that, as with, you know, everyone, that where she's not perfect at her own life, but she also is good at her job. So, and it grew into this. This was in the 90s, and it grew. We decided. Long story short, we decided that like a book is great, but it's not enough. She's a whole superhero with a whole world, and so we launched. So my creative partner Chris Cobb, who is a genius, like kind of knew how to build a website back when like only NASA did that, and so
It's so
we
cool.
built a website, and I remember we thought, okay, we'll build a website to house, you know, her ongoing comic adventures that in a sort of a fanciful, hyped up comic book way speak to relationship issues. Like, you know, when she goes up against, you know, villains like Ex Luthor, and she also has kind of nemesis who aren't villains like Miss Fling, and like, so we created it's kind of like Buffy, where the villains, this is before Buffy, but where the villains kind of represent something about the world, or and the challenges represent something about how people interact.
It's so beautiful that you just used Buffy as a reference for any of this. Like, if I
Yeah,
wasn't 100% locked in before, like, I'm in it so much now.
thank you. This is more like, thank you. This is more like a little bit more like old school comic book, but they're all the same. I mean, it's all the same idea, like old school, like mythical story, like resonant mythical. What's the word I'm looking for? You know, hero's journey type storytelling, but fun. And anyway, so we launched the website, and it almost literally was an overnight success at a time when there weren't very many websites at the time, but it really, like, I remember I told Chris, like, here's my manila file where I will print out the advice, the letters that people send for the advice column. I don't know why I was printing them, whatever. But and soon I was like, oh geez, now it's a filing cabinet. You know, like people just found, we didn't know anything. There was no such thing as SEO. Like we just launched it, and we found that there was um I wouldn't go so far as to call it a hunger, but maybe it was. But like we met a need that we didn't know was so deep would be so deep for funny but serious conversations about navigating relationships that took everyone seriously. Like it wasn't just like, let's talk about men, meh, like because it was for
Yeah.
everybody. And we were getting questions from men, women, from trans people, from gay people, like before we even talked about that stuff, because there was something, I don't know for sure, but there was something both familiar about a superhero. You could trust a superhero,
100%.
but also a little bit less intimidating because, like, I mean, she's a cartoon, like you're not really you're not really spelling your secrets. So I think that balance, and plus humor, like we were just funny. Like Chris's was so good at the comic book style humor, and then I did the advice column. These are the two main things that we started with, in a way that was very. I came from magazine writing, so I knew I had done a ton of like other advice columns or just a ton of reporting on relationships and stuff like that. So I wasn't just like, I don't know, like I didn't necessarily have more expertise than a, a professional relationship coach. Of course I didn't have more expertise, but I had a point of view.
Uh-huh.
And I had a style, so that resonated with people, and I think, and also kind of a moral code. And I think that with those three things, you don't have to be. I didn't need, and I don't want to be one of those people like I did my own research. Like it's not like, oh, anybody could be. I'm not putting myself on the same level as someone who has degrees in family and marital therapy, or like I'm not. But I was doing something different that was, so I'm not comparing myself to them, but there was something when you have, first of all, if you care about how, and this definitely came from a feminist place, but when you care about how people relate to each other in the realm of relationships, especially when we live in the patriarchy,
Right,
and when you care about just general niceness,
Mm-hmm.
and when you have been working for years already at like humor writing and relationship, a lot of reporting on relationships, and you have a point of view and a moral code, that adds up to some kind of authority that is different from people who have degrees, but adds up to something else that is still reliable in its own way. And so that people found that they felt they could trust.
Well, I like too that, your method. So you're using humor in a healing way. And I think that a lot of times people forget that that's really one of the strongest ways to use humor as a tool is in a healing fashion. And I love that you were able to do that with that, because I feel like people hear that more. Like they're much more receptive to it that way.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know why this line just popped into my head, but it was funny. There's even a way you can like kind of deliver bad news being funny, like, or even like be a little mean about someone with being fun. I don't like to be mean, but here's what I mean.
Right.
This just popped into my head that someone was writing about her boyfriend. And again, men wrote to us too about their, in straight relationships wrote to us. Well, it was everybody.
Yeah.
But I remember someone saying like, something was off in their relationship. I don't remember what, but she said, I mean, he says I'm so pretty and he's so lucky. And then, but all this other stuff was terrible. And I'm like, okay, you're pretty. He's lucky. What are you, a penny? And I don't know. It
love
just popped
that.
into my head. But like, but I don't remember the rest of the but it was obvious that like he was not, from the rest of the context, it was obvious that he was not the boyfriend of the year. But it was a way for me to say, in What Are You, a Penny, 5 words of like, what he's doing is not enough.
100%.
Without being preachy, without being, and just using humor. It was a little withering, but it wasn't mean.
No. Sometimes being able to, that whole idea of like seeing the forest through the trees, it's, if you can present it in that way. My mom always used to say, like, if, you don't laugh, you cry. Because the thing is, humor is a mirror. A lot of times it really is. And if you can deliver it in such a way where it might hurt a little bit, but it softens it. It softens the blow.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, there's so many things that humor does, but right, when it's not, first of all, when it's not punching down, right, when
Yeah.
you're not making fun of the person who is sad or in trouble, even when it's the bad guy. Like I would never have made fun of someone who was whatever. Yeah, when you pick the right target, let's put it that way. When you pick the right target and the right timing, then it can be a thing that not only softens, but also kind of helps you or whoever it is see things from a different angle. Like I'm picking up my AirPods case here for those of you listening to the podcast. But like it helps you, like, if you think everything is just like this, then humor, and I'm holding the AirPods case up, but then humor can be like, but what if it was this? She says, flipping over the AirPods case, it's the same case. The same thing happened, but it's another way to see it. And you're like, oh. And also if you're able to, especially if you're writing humor about yourself, about something that was difficult, if you're able to hold it at arm's length enough to kind of flip it over and be like, there's something funny about this. Okay, not that. That's the painful side. But like, okay, what if I flipped it over and looked at this side? Then it's actually kind of cognitive therapy light. Like I'm not equating it to cognitive therapy, but I'm saying, like, and of course you have to have like healed enough to get to the point where you can do it in the first place. Otherwise it's your journal and you need to do your process, like you're not ready, and that's fine.
Right.
But if you're able to kind of hold it at arm's length, then it becomes, whatever it is, a bad breakup, whatever, becomes a thing that happened to you or that is in your life, not a thing that is you.
Oh, I love that. Well, and the idea, I don't know, like I feel like you just created like a new pathway in my brain of like being able to say, okay, here's this box, right? And it holds this event that was really hard for me. And to be able, like you said, to heal, to do all of that, and to turn it and go, oh, nope. So this part is the painful part, and so we're not gonna make light of. This lives here, and it's allowed to live here. And when I turn it, this is the part where humor or comedy or growth or anything comes from. And to have both of those sides and to allow yourself to have both of those sides, I think is like pretty fucking incredible. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
The obvious example, I think, thank you. The obvious example, and I credit my friend Richie, who's a comic and a writer. A bunch of us were like, in doing stand up, uh, well, before September 11th, and then, obviously stopped for a while. And a lot of people, we were sort of called upon to think about, talk about, whatever.
Yeah.
Everything shut down. Like the Onion stopped. For the Onion was the first back out of the gate, and they nailed it. But Richie gave actually his mom was a minister, and she asked him to give it, like, basically do a guest sermon at her church, and he did it about comedy on September 11th pretty soon, like, within the year after September 11th.
Oh, wow.
What
Okay.
he said was, the way he put what you're saying, Carly, is that there's the rock and there's the ripple. So like with September 11th, like you can't, obviously, you can't make fun of like the thing that happened, which is the
Absolutely.
rock, right? But you can make fun of all the things that happened because, or not all, some of the things that happened because of it. So the chief among them is, you can't make fun of the thing that happened, but you can make fun of our reaction to it. Because we were, bewildered, to say the least. And
Oh,
so you can,
absolutely.
it makes me, like, the Onion's headline that I love the most was, not knowing what else to do, woman in Ohio bakes flag cake. It's not exactly right, but something like that, which showed that we didn't know, like, especially if you weren't in New York, and even if you were, like, I'm feeling something, but I guess I'll make a cake, like that. And that's completely within bounds, and not only within bounds, it's revelatory. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
It reveals something really deep, but uses comedy in, like, it's like one sentence says volumes.
Well, yeah. No,
So,
absolutely.
Lynn, you've been doing comedy for a while. Like, you've been
Well, I
involved.
was 3 at the time. No, I
Oh my gosh.
folks. No, I did stand up for about 10 years, but then I just got tired. I didn't like leave in a huff. It just got, you have to be good at you guys know, to be good at stand up, you have to be out there all the time.
Yeah.
And my goal with doing stand up was to do stand up. And so I didn't like quit officially. I just kind of did it less and less, but I was never not around doing something that was related to comedy, humor, whether it was producing shows or really honing my voice as a journalist to be able to talk about really difficult things in a funny way that was illuminating, or, being involved in, a Breakup Girl also was that, that idea of like, how do we blend comedy and things that need to, how do we leverage comedy to help things change that need to change?
Yeah.
I'm going to preface the statement ahead of time with I'm sorry, because I realize already how this is going to sound coming out. But the fact that you were a gasp woman in comedy, even saying that like hurts my heart, because it's like, how do you say that? Like, my God, you were a woman doctor? Like, I can't. Like, it's just so frustrating to even say. But I know that the road is a lot bumpier for women in comedy. And so there's definitely a lot more resilience, bravery, maybe, to kind of stay on that road. So
Well, I mean, and that's you've actually you've actually pointed out something that you should not apologize for putting. You shouldn't apologize for anything, but for pointing out, which is that we'll never know how many women quit because comedy is so hard. It's hard for everyone. It's hard for the straightest, whitest, dude, right? To be fair, some of whom are our best friends, but and are wonderfully funny, but it's hard for everyone. But we will never know how many, as with any career, we will never know how many how many women were just like, I just can't, because there's not enough clubs for me to work at, because X% of the managers don't make me feel safe, or because I'm doing the same work for half the pay, or because this we're good. I mean, it's all the same in all the careers, right? So, or because I can't go anywhere without being harassed, or whatever. So, or whether or whether I'm just sick and tired of seeing funny enough dudes who do work hard rise faster when I'm doing the same work, so like, how many have we lost? I don't know. So it just, it just, honestly, I don't know if I would call it bravery or what I would call it is, honestly, I just it takes more energy, so I was lucky in that I wasn't very ambitious, I just, so I had all of the like shitty things happen, not all of them. I had some shitty things happen, or just like the kind of, paper cuts kind of thing,
No.
but it happened in journalism too. I mean, like my God, like if you go back to Breakup Girl, I can't, okay, hear me out. I've never seen Sex and the City. And here's why. Okay. And here's why. It was huge when I was doing comedy.
yeah.
And doing Breakup Girl. I have no opinion on it. But here's why. Because when I would say, well, first of all, as a journalist, just in general, and when I was a journalist, people would say, like, no one would ever be like, how's work? People would say, I mean, other journalists would, but everyone else would say, like, are you still writing? How's your, do you write, when do you write at night? When do you, how's your, as if it was,
hobby.
yes. And so I would say, and so I'd get a little, I mean, I was never mean, but I would say like just rolled all the way into the back of my head and back around again. And then I would say, well,
Uh-huh. No.
who helps people with romantic emergencies, they would say, oh, is that like Sex and the City? And I'd be like, not a bit. Like, what did I do? Like, in what, it would be like, if I'm like, well, I'm here with this tiny owl. I'm holding up a random owl from my kid's desk. And someone's saying like, is that like a watermelon? And being like, what? So, and it just like shows you that there weren't, in fairness to the people who asked, like there weren't enough things for them to refer to. I mean, yes, of course they weren't paying attention, but like there weren't enough kind of, I don't like this expression, but female forward properties in culture for them to compare. So they were just trying, like, in fairness, they were just making conversation. They were just trying to keep the conversation going. So, and I get it, but like, that's why I didn't like make a thing about it, but I like never saw Sex in the City because I wanted to always be able to say, like, "Actually, I've never seen it." No, nothing against it, but so they'd be like, "What?" "But then how can you be a woman?" Like,
Oh,
so
to be fair, that show did not age well, like, at all.
yeah, I
Um,
guess not. I guess not.
I did go back to watch and went, "Ooh, oh,
Mm,
that's okay, things are different."
yeah.
But, I mean, I remember that, like, even the idea of women writing comedy was not even taken very seriously until you saw, like, Tina Fey taking over the writers' room at SNL. Like, that's when I remember
Yeah.
seeing that first kind of shift of like, "Oh, alright, they can be funny. Okay."
Yeah, that's true, and there's also at the same time, there's also kind of, like, a hidden history. Like, if you there's a book called, They Killed, which is about, like, all the women writers at SNL who, of course, like, suffered greatly, but, like, who were there, like, and when I was a kid watching, Carol Burnett and Ruth Buzzy and Goldie Hawn, and Miss Piggy, like, I didn't think, like, "Oh, they're funny female comics." I didn't it never occurred to me. I didn't think like, "Oh, they're funny women. Thanks, feminist mom, for showing me the" like, it didn't think of it didn't
It's
occur
funny.
to me. It was just comedy. Oh,
Yeah,
Lucille Ball, like, that's like, the Jeffersons, those women, oh my god, those women were hilarious, and, like, I never
Hilarious.
thought of it as women's comedy at all. So it's also we also have not you, but there's also like a cultural blindness to the fact that we've been here all along. Yes, being harassed. Yes, being underpaid for doing the same work. Yes, being pigeonholed. Yes, Phyllis Diller had to actually make herself quote unquote ugly in order to that's what she did. That was her brand, was like that whole house coat and frizzy hair.
mhm.
It's because women couldn't be pretty and funny.
Been funny. Mhm.
Right. So she was hilarious, but like there also is this like cultural blindness or cultural like invisibility of right, like when people will say that you didn't say this, but when people say to me now, like, but isn't it, why are you doing gold? Isn't everything fine? I mean, we have Amy and also Amy, and I'm not that's not
Yeah.
entirely a fair that's not a fair
It's a good
representation.
But
But
we've all
like
been in those moments where that's what it feels like. Where, like, I mean, I have it as a woman, but then also being raised by a queer mother. Like when people are like, what is such a big deal? Like, why is this such a big deal? Why are all the gays going on cruises with other gays? Like nobody cares. And it's like, but people do. And it actually is important. So I realize that like in your scope of reality, it's over here and it means nothing or it's not there. But it actually is, like it actually is here. Like I run into it all the time as like a mother, a wife, a woman, and then also like being the daughter of queer parents. Like what's the big deal? Why do you guys need parades? I don't know, cause like, if there's enough of us, we can hold hands and hopefully, like, not get yelled at. You know what I mean? Like, but it's the same thing, like, well, everything's normal. Nobody cares if you have a vagina. No, but they, like, really do.
they kind of do, very much do, very very much do, deeply. Yes. Yep.
So, Lynn, what are you doing with gold? Like, what is the
Yeah.
yeah, because this sounds like the next, like, major thing in your, like, very prolific,
Yes.
experience. So what's going on there?
So, thanks for asking. So it's pulling threads from all the things I care about. It's first of all just a definite. What is gold? It's the comedy school and a professional network and content studio where women and non-binary creators, and as we like to say, others, amp up their comedy careers or their creative side hustles, join a powerful community, and make funny stuff. So we recognize that comedy is hard for everybody, and we also welcome anybody. The only thing that we really promise is there's no bro vibe, So that's sort of what makes things difficult at the end of the day
Love
for
that.
everybody, and that's what we can really control. And so we're mostly on. I mean, we are on we're headquartered online. People meet and greet and hang out all the time, and they're when they know other Goldies in their locales. But what I'm really trying to do is, make it easier, make forging a comedy career or creative side hustle um, easier for the people for whom it is the hardest. Because world, why? Because I love comedy, because comedy matters, because comedy is a job, and because also at the level of culture change, which I'm a nerd about, which is a whole field in which I'm a nerd, it's not certainly not the only way to change culture. There are many good and other fun ways to change culture, or to be part of, to contribute to changing culture. But comedy's mine, because I feel like the more, if I want to just help widen the funnel, if I can make it easier for different voices to succeed and be heard, then we have, then those not just those voices, but those faces are being, not just the content, there's new interesting content, important content being put out there, whether it's feminist or about, living with autism, or, anything that's just going to broaden people's perspective. And then it's also the people, because comedy confers authority. When you're, just to use the stand-up metaphor, it's not the only kind of comedy, but when you're on stage, you're you're in control. You have the mic, you have the punch.
Yep.
And whether that means that you're, actually a stand-up or a showrunner, or just, have that power, comedy is power. And so, the highfalutin thing is, since comedy is power, I want to contribute in my own world, my own way, changing the face of power. So, but what it means day to day is that we're just trying to help people use our resources, our network, our instructors, our community, our mentors, our skill building, our opportunities to help people succeed in comedy. And I always say creative side hustles, because we have, everyone in the community is very serious about whatever it is they're doing comedy wise.
Right.
We do have people who are comedy curious, and they're very, very welcome, but we really sort of program for people who are like, no, whether it's like a show they want to make or just a career they want to build, they are serious, including people who aren't necessarily quitting their day job, but who are like, I have a pilot that has been sitting on my heart since before the pandemic, and I can't take it anymore. And I am going to juggle with the rest of my life, and I am going to take it as far as I can. I'm going to write it the hell out of it, and I'm going to take it as far as I can go.
Oh, I love that. Also, the term comedy curious.
No, I want to use it today. I have to find purpose to use
Right.
that term.
Like, I am obsessed with that. Also, like, I don't know, having a collective, or having a space where you can say, I'm super passionate about this thing. I also know that I am funny. I also know that this thing is funny, and help me with all of you, like all of your skills, tools, all of these things, do better, and I will do the same as you. I think that
Yeah.
is so freaking cool. I love that, because there's nothing more dangerous than a room full of women, or a room full of like theys or others, like you guys have said, all together, working together. That is so, there's nothing more dangerous, and there's nothing more beautiful. So I love this. I love
Great.
everything about this. So how do
Yeah.
people become a part of this?
So, well, thank you. The first thing is you can follow us on Instagram and see what's up. Because we post, I'd like to think, the right mix of content and stuff about, come join us.
Yeah.
And so that's a start. And our website is goldcomedy.com. And we do have also a lot of resources there, that are a lot of, how to's, even though, how to write your log line, essential joke writing exercises, things like that are certainly helpful in and of themselves. And a lot of Q&As with great comedy celebrities and pros. Those are fun. And then you can, if you want to dig deeper, what the sort of the heartbeat of the whole thing is, what we call the club, which is, that's the paid place, and it's $499.99 a year to access the community that we talked about, a whole group of unlimited classes that you've already paid for, that come with the payment, that you can also take multiple times: stand up, storytelling, sketch, web series production, editing for comedy, all those things. And then we also have a program that we recruit, what's the word? Yes, recruit, but people can apply to be on part of our sketch teams program. So we have teams like Funny or like not Funny, I Think You Should Leave, or Lonely Island, but women and non-binary folks. And so people join those with some degree of experience, but then we also, assemble the teams into, so that everyone has the people you need for a team: a director, an editor, also writer, obviously, actors. And they also share resources. And with those we've had, what's cute that's happening right now, cute, is because of the way content is kind of reconfiguring itself. And I'm still learning about how all this is. I'm sort of still kind of catching up, but we still do train people to pitch to, Netflix or networks or whatever, but there's more and more there are more and more places to go sort of straight to distribution and retain ownership, like fast channels. So we have some good relationships with people who either existing fast channels or people who connect and package content for fast channels. So for example, we have a web series that that debuted on Fox Soul, which is one of Fox's fast channels recently, and we're trying to develop those partnerships and really show our teams and others that we can help connect you to these opportunities to have your stuff actually distributed. There is ad revenue involved. I think that there's so much content now that it's not that one show will not help you buy that yacht you are dreaming of, but so to be realistic, but at the same time, like, it's still real distribution. Like, you're still on Fox Soul, and there is a financial structure. It's not just like, hey, we'll take your stuff free, and it's not exclusive. So we're creator friendly. You own your stuff. Those deals are not exclusive, so you still own your stuff. We just license it from you to have the power to help you find a home for it if we can. So
love that.
Yeah,
love that.
That's a piece where that's a piece we're piloting now. That's going well so far.
I'm just going to do a collective thank you for using your
100%.
passion and your experience to help lift up others who, everybody can use a little bit of a lift up in their journey for what they love. So I'm so glad that there's someone like you who is like putting out a helping hand and saying we can do this together.
Yeah. And like fearless. I don't know. That's if somebody was like, how would you describe Lynn? Fabulous, fearless. Like, because this could be this is a huge undertaking. Like, this is a huge thing. But I mean, we can hear the passion. I hear the sincerity. Like, I don't know. This is incredible. I just want to share this with the world. We should do a podcast.
You guys should totally do a podcast.
Oh my gosh. And we'll have you come back and you can just like all the time.
If you're interested, we will have links for everything in the show notes. So please make sure that you check all of that out so that you can check out Gold and see what's there. This is a lot of wonderful, great stuff. So, just another opportunity for us all to like work together and make change. Love that. Miss Lynn Harris, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate you and all of the wonderful good that you're putting out into the world. So
thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You guys are great.
All right, guys. Well, if you haven't already, make sure that you guys follow us on all of the socials. You can reach out to us at we'reallfinepodcast@gmail.com. And I hope you have a great week. We love you.